Councillor Jim McMahon.
Here.
Councillor John McGee.
Yeah.
Councillor Tom Cook.
Here.
Councillor Ian Linton.
Here.
Councillor Fiona Campbell.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Claire Maitland.
Here.
Councillor Claire Leach.
Here, Christine.
Councillor Neil McGee.
Here.
Councillor Jim Roberts.
Here, Christine.
Councillor Jackie Todd.
Here, Christine, thank you.
And do we have Shaheen Mirza?
Yes, here.
Thank you. Babs Mowat. She's there. Reverend Dr. Alan Bint.
Yep. Here.
Jackie Livingston.
Here.
And do we have Ian Pettigrew? No, not yet. Thanks, Chair.
No, like a full house there, Christine. That was, okay, just the first item is the declarations of interest. I don't think there's any kind of obvious ones. Unless anybody, have you got any to declare? No. Okay, we're going to item 2, which is the early learning and childcare allocation policy and criteria for funded places in early childhood centres and funded providers delivering 1,140 hours. Janie.
Yes. Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. The report sets out the revisions to the early learning and childcare allocation policy for academic year 2022-23. The full implementation of the early learning and childcare 1140-hour entitlement came into effect on the 1st of August of this year. The uptake of places in the current academic year is set out in paragraph 7 in table 1. The figure of 2,637 children includes 76 children who are accessing a blended early learning and childcare place with a childminder or a split place with another provider, and 18 children who are resident in another local authority area who are accessing a place in East Ayrshire. In addition, there are 47 children who are resident in East Ayrshire accessing a funded place in another local authority area. This may be due to parent study, employment or other childcare arrangements. The total percentage of eligible children who live in East Ayrshire aged 2 to 4 years accessing a funded early learning childcare place is 92%, which is a really good high figure. Further extensions to the entitlement of funded early learning and childcare are set out in paragraphs 9 to 16. Paragraph 9 confirms that from August of this year, 2-year-olds with a parent who has experience of care are now eligible for a funded early learning and childcare place. Paragraph 10 notes that the new income thresholds as a result of the UK policy change relating to the increase in the national living wage, in turn amends the eligibility criteria for funded early learning and childcare for 2-year-olds. Therefore, more 2-year-olds may be eligible. Paragraphs 11 to 16 sets out the background and extension of the entitlement of funded early learning and childcare to 4-year-olds, which will take effect from August 2023. For academic year 2022-23, there is no change in the rules around funded early learning and childcare for children whose parents wish to delay their start to primary 1 and access an additional year of funded early learning and childcare. Applications from parents who wish to access additional year of funded early learning and childcare will be considered in March next year, as is usual practice, and decisions will be based on an assessment of well-being, putting the child at the centre and working in partnership with families. Paragraph 14, Table 2, sets out the uptake of that additional year funded early learning and childcare, which in this current academic year was 54% of the estimated eligible population. The Scottish Government recently announced a further 5 local authorities to take part in the pilot approach in 22-23 prior to the full implementation of the obligation in August of 2023. The additions and revisions to the early learning and childcare allocation policy criteria are set out in Appendix 1. In addition to the new eligibility criteria for 2-year-olds, The experience of implementing the policy for the delivery of the 1140 hours this year identified the current criteria for priority 5, which is children who have a sibling attending the same early learning and childcare setting, needs to be shifted to a higher priority, so that siblings are not only allocated a place in the same ELC setting, but they are also allocated the same pattern of hours. So it is proposed that this criteria is moved from priority 5 to priority 3. The defined geographic area as described in paragraph 21 has worked well over the last 2 years, and we are recommending that that should be retained for priority criteria 3, 6, 7 and 8 to ensure that early learning and childcare settings are not impacted by oversubscription of applications. Ballots will continue to be required when the demand for places in individual settings is oversubscribed, and also if demand for particular patterns of hours are oversubscribed. In both cases, the priority criteria will be applied to allocate the places and pattern of hours, and if oversubscribed within the criteria, then ballots will be required. The legal implications are described in paragraphs 23 to 26, including the publication of the new statutory guidance, which is updated from the original guidance published in 2014. In terms of risk, this academic year is the first full year of implementation of the 1140 hours commitment. All settings and childminders delivering the funded entitlement must meet the national early learning and childcare standards. And if a setting or a childminder fails to meet one or more of the criteria, then they will be subject to an improvement period. In addition, the Programme for Government 2021-22 sets out the Scottish Government's ambition to extend the funded ELC entitlement to all 1 and 2 year olds, starting in the course of this Parliament with children from low-income households. This extension to the entitlement for 1 and 2 year olds will require further investment to create more funded places in our early childhood centres with funded providers, including childminders, and in turn will necessitate a further increase in the early learning and childcare workforce. A review of the existing school and early childhood estate will also be required to identify options for reconfiguration of accommodation and extensions where this is possible. The increase in funded places for this age group will also need to be factored into any new builds. In relation to the policy, sorry, I'm just pulling my key paper down here. In relation to the policy, further amendment to the policy will be required for academic year 23-24 to take account of those 4 year olds who will be eligible for a funded year of early learning and childcare. The Directorate and the Scottish Government have indicated their intention to begin engagement this year with families, the early learning sector and academic experts to design how that entitlement can best support families. In relation to the workforce, it has almost doubled in East Ayrshire. We are still experiencing both internal and external movement of staff, resulting in vacant posts to be filled. Our forecast is that there will be a further 30.4 full-time equivalent posts to fill, bringing the total workforce to 578.8 full-time equivalent posts by April 2022. Also, the Early Learning and Childcare Directorate and Scottish Government have committed to developing a new 5-year workforce strategy to explore the range of workforce challenges and priorities for the childcare sector in the context of implementing the 1140 hours commitment, COVID-19 recovery, and the Programme for Government forward commitments on childcare. And they have said that that strategy will be developed collaboratively with the sector. Moving on to finance, the Scottish Government has recognised that a further year of the specific grant is required, and that is needed in order to get a better understanding of delivery costs in what they are calling a steady state. In conclusion, Chair, the recommendations that relate to the early learning and childcare allocation policy are set out in paragraph 2, which are to note the extensions to the entitlement of funded early learning and childcare places to 2 year olds of parents who have experience of care, to note the new income threshold for funded early learning and childcare for 2 year olds who are eligible due to parents' receipt of working tax credits or universal credit, To note that the education authorities will be under an obligation to provide an additional year of funded early learning and childcare to all children whose parents choose to defer their primary one start from August 2023. And finally, to approve the revisions to the early learning and childcare allocation policy and priority criteria for funded places in our early childhood centres, our funded providers, including childminders, who are on the Council's contract framework and delivering 1140 hours. Happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks. Do you have any questions out there? Got one or two there? Fiona?
Thanks, Dougie. This is really more a comment than a question. I want to thank you and your team, Janie, for delivering this flagship policy of 1140 hours in East Ayrshire. This has been a complex, collaborative effort involving facilities and property management, finance, procurement, and the early years workforce, including childminders across East Ayrshire. The expansion of early learning entitlement is fundamental to our commitment to improve outcomes for our local children and to reduce inequity in attainment. So I'd really like to thank everyone involved for this policy. It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Campbell.
Thanks. I think we'd echo that, Jane. I think it's been a good bit of work there. Tom?
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of points for clarification. Thanks very much, Jeannie, for taking us through the paper. Looking at the numbers and the introduction of more 2-year-olds and the 4-year-old, have we got the capacity at present that if we had a, shall we say, a higher uptake than the 92%, if it moved up, have we actually got the capacity to take in the number of pupils or number of young people that would be requiring a place? And the second one is in paragraph 22, when you talk about the geographic area, what happens where there's a primary school that doesn't actually have an early learning centre? I'm thinking, this is local to me, Annan Hill Primary School. So what becomes how do we tie that into a geographic area for say, Gargaston Primary School, Gargaston Early Learning Centre? So people living in this area wouldn't fall into that. I just tried to hope I'm not confusing you, but I think hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. Thanks, Jane.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Cook. Through you, Chair, I'll start with your last question first. In terms of the geographic areas, they have been assigned according to catchment areas of primary schools. So the example that you've provided in terms of Annan Hill Primary, we look at the catchment area for that primary school, which would take in Flowerbank Early Childhood Centre and one of our funded providers, which is Beechwood House Nursery. So therefore, every geographic area does have a catchment area. If we look at a couple, if we look at Sorn as an example and Ochiltree as an example, because they are villages and they don't have an early learning and childcare centre or facility within those particular communities, they are aligned to either Mauchline or Catrin in the case of Sorn, and in terms of Auchinleck and Cumnock for Ochiltree. So every area has a geographic area, and that is detailed to parents and updated in our guide to parents, which is published on an annual basis, so that parents are aware of that. In relation to your first question about our capacity, we have 36 of our own early childhood centres, and 16 of those can deliver a service across 52 weeks of the year. So because those services are open from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock, we are able then to maximise the number of places that we can provide across the year. So as an example, if we have a service which is registered for 120 full-time equivalent places, we can maximise those places to 144 across the year, because some parents will take term time places within that establishment, and some will take the long morning and some will take the long afternoon. So we have the capacity there to be able to maximise our places. Also, in terms of our childminders, we have 40 registered childminders on our contract framework, which is really, really great. And we're expecting more childminders to come on that framework over the next few months. So in terms of our capacity across our own early childhood centres, with our funded providers and our childminders, we have got capacity, but we also have the opportunity to maximise that capacity and reconfigure it in a different way if we were to get such an increase. Thank you, Councillor Cook.
No, thanks, Jeannie, for that. That explains it, right? Thanks.
Okay. Was Claire Leach? Claire?
That's great, thanks, Jane. Yeah, Jenny, good report as always. I suppose my question is just in relation to the workforce. So you've mentioned that we're able to double our workforce and we're looking for 30.4 more posts. Now, I'm just wondering, I don't know if there is an answer to this question, just in terms of how confident you are that we'll be able to recruit these people timeously. You know, I know we had a council drive for career change, but I was also in the understanding that Ayrshire are like, you know, fishing out the same pool, so to speak, in terms of early years practitioners. You know, 30 is quite a lot when you look across our early years in terms of rolling this out. So I suppose I'm maybe just looking for a wee bit of reassurance. If you're able to do that, you know, I do understand you might not be able to. And, you know, I suppose I also don't know what the picture looks like in other local authorities in terms of what they're going to be recruiting also. So I don't know if you've got the answer to that question. I understand if you don't.
Well, I'll try and answer the question as best as I can, Councillor Leach. Yes, we still have internal movement. That internal movement is really due to opportunities for practitioners to move into senior posts and for senior to move into deputy posts, as we've seen over the course of the last couple of years. We also have had our career changers, as you noted, who came in training at grade 3 in terms of support assistants, and many of them have gone on to gain the additional qualification, the HNC in childhood practice, which means that they have moved on to practitioner posts. So therefore, we are now looking at more support assistants required being recruited. So we will see this kind of continuum, I think, of people moving in across our centres where there are vacancies, where people retire, people are moving to other local authorities, people are gaining promotion, people are moving from support assistant posts to practitioner posts. And then we have the workforce, the future workforce, which is coming through because we will have a group of modern apprentices this year, and we also will have students who will qualify in June. And at the moment, in terms of our bank list of practitioners, we have a number of qualified practitioners who are gaining experience, who qualified with their qualification last year. So it's an evolving and situation, but I think we are as confident as we can be that by April we should have posts backfilled, but we can't obviously predict in the future how many people will take on other promoted opportunities and move again across establishments. So I think we might be in this movement of staff for a wee while yet. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. John?
Right, thanks for going through that paper, Jenny. I stay 50 yards for one of the early learning centres, and every morning I see youngsters going to the establishment. Some at first were a wee bit more reluctant than others, but they all seem quite happy to go now in the mornings. Just a question on paragraphs 41 and 42 when it talks about the financial implications. Just want reassurance that this flagship policy is fully funded by the Scottish Government. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor He. Through you, Chair. As I said, the Scottish Government have given us the assurances that the specific grant for early learning and childcare will be continued into financial year 2022-23. And I think that's the right decision with the disruption that we've had with construction and with recruiting the workforce, all down to the COVID pandemic. We have not been in what they have termed that steady state yet. So things will evolve as they are at the moment in terms of delivery. So we do need to have that full financial year in 22-23 to actually have that steady state. So that confirmation has been welcomed Thank you, Councillor McGee. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Okay. Oh, sorry. Excuse me, Jim Roberts.
Thanks very much, Chair. Good morning, Jenny. That's a good report, a lot of positives in that. Some of the points have already been covered, i.e. Claire covered the recruitment aspect. Can I just ask you about the risks? You're right to highlight the risks. Yes, it is a relatively new scheme, and I think the monitoring of such a scheme is going to be important. Obviously, going forward, the monitoring will pick up any anomalies, anything that's not working. So that's an important point, important consideration. But I think reflecting back, for the point in time where the early years framework was put in place, it was a transformational policy, and I think, this continuing on supplements that wholeheartedly, bearing in mind we all recognise the importance of the formative years. So great initiative, Jenny, and good luck with the recruitment process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts.
Thanks, Jenny. Okay, members, I don't see any more hands up. A good paper, a good bit of work there, Jenny, and look at recommendations, page 3, paragraph 2. I'm happy to agree with recommendations. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, the next item is the Ayrshire British Sign Language. That's Ian Tuff.
Thanks, Chair, and good morning, members. So this report is a summary of the Ayrshire Equality Partnerships response to the statutory requirement for British Sign Language Action Plan, which was introduced on the back of the BSL Scotland Act in 2015. So our plan was introduced in 2018, takes us up to 2024. So this mid-term report provides an opportunity for us to share with members and others just the progress that's been made with that. Within that, and it's set out in the appendix that's attached, then we touch on the impact of the pandemic and a number of the actions that have been delayed or actually not progressed at all because of the pandemic. They're highlighted, but that's balanced by what is also some really positive progress with other actions in there, and I'll touch on those in a second. So as I said, this is a shared local plan that we have. This is based on the approach we've developed over a number of these equality issues, where on a pan-Ayrshire basis we have shared equality outcomes. So that same framework, that same approach has given us that strength to allow us to look at the British Sign Language local plan as well on that basis. That partnership includes the 3 councils, the Ayrshire College, NHS, Ayrshire and Arran, and even though it's not a requirement of the legislation, the 3 IJBs also participate in that. So the appendix to the report includes that update on the actual actions themselves, and as I said, we've got a number that are highlighted in red that have not progressed, but that's balanced by those positive ones, and they cover around about themes from training and the BSL beginner courses that are in place, from the development of the Deaf Youth Club supported by Vibrant Communities, which is really positive, but also touches on the themes around about communications, about family support, children and young people in schools, and that's all set out, and hopefully that's of interest and assistance to members in terms of a mid-term progress on this report. And Chair, recommendations are at paragraph 2, and I'm happy to take any questions on that. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Ian. Okay, any questions? Claire Leach, then Tom Cook.
Cheers, Biggie. Hiya, Ian. Thanks very much for that. As a quality spokesperson, I'm really chuffed to see the progression of this, obviously. I think it's brilliant that we're looking at across all services. I'm noticing in the report as well, page 25, it's saying we will further promote BSL for 1 and 2 languages within school curriculum for early years. It says that we've got 1 school in East Ayrshire currently who that BSL is part of the curriculum. I'm just wondering, what's the progress on rolling this out a wee bit further within our schools, as mentioned here? I suppose that's just my question, because I think it would be great for obviously young folk to be exposed to BSL and helping deaf children get a wee bit more including school perhaps.
That's clear, Ian.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Leach. So you'll see there are a number of actions round about schools, and that theme is in the various sections. But of course, there has also been some of the impact of the pandemic on some of that work. So perhaps to give a more full answer to that, I would come back to Councillor Leach with some of the detail around what's happening now in schools in terms of curricular support. But it's certainly a priority for us. It's certainly set out within that action plan as something we'll continue to focus on going forward. And I'd be happy to bring that back to Councillor Leach, Chair.
Thanks, Ian. John? I think that if we could do that and bring it back to all the members of the Cabinet, that'd be useful.
Of course, yes, sure.
Yeah. Tom?
Thanks, Ian. A really good report. Real progress getting made. This is a great support for people with hidden disability in a lot of cases. Just a point. I note that we've given an assurance that we have the community engagement event. We'll have BSL signers there to take people through it. We're just looking at our council meetings, and now that we're streaming them, have we considered actually having a BSL assistance for council meetings, and even on the streamed version once we've recorded it? I think there's still a whole lot of people excluded from participating or even listening into council meetings and committee meetings.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, Ian?
Yeah, thanks. It's a good question. It's something that's been raised with us already recently as well out with this meeting, but it certainly is something we're looking at. The platforms that the recorded meetings of council are now getting promoted on have those facilities for supporting deaf access to that. I think what we're looking at just now is perhaps, because this is relatively new to the council too, is considering that it's not currently in the action plan, Councillor Cook, so it's something we would want to now take forward, having had those comments. Rather than perhaps, I think there has to be some sort of balance of what would be proportionate for potentially long meetings of Cabinet, long meetings of Council. So I think we're looking at, along with colleagues in the communications team, having almost a shorter version, a summary of meetings of Council, of Cabinet that could have some of that sign language interpretation added to it. So that's something we are looking at. It's something that's been, as I said, been raised with us. And even though it's not in the action plan, it is something we're committed to taking forward now. Chair, thanks.
Thanks, Ian. Can we have that noted in the minutes of the meeting?
Right. Yeah, absolutely, Tom. I think that, I think we've been asked, there's a number of members. I see Jim McMartin, he's still in his study, he's going to ask that as well. But certainly I'll put that in the minutes. Jim, do you want to come in?
No, you're right to point that out, Councillor Cook. I think it'd be a worthwhile exercise. Maybe even in addition to that, maybe some subtitles along with it as well might help.
We might even get a load of Alan Brown's doing the rest of us. I don't know he needs subtitles, which is quite actually shocking, really. But we all know our Ayrshire accents here. Anyone else? Was somebody there? Neil.
Thanks, Chair. Just the last minute thought. In support of what Claire and Tom were saying, this seems to have been a long haul to get to this point, and now I think we really need to get a big push as we appear to be, because it's a long held wish of mine that this be curriculum based and that every child with a disability gets an opportunity wherever it can. And I think we're heading here, but I think we need to keep our eye on the ball. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've now got the Deaf Club now established in Chris House, which used to be the bottom shop, is now there's your Deaf Club. I think it'd be worthwhile maybe just, I know Vibrant Communities are in regular contact with them, and it's maybe ask them what they're looking for, instead of kind of imposing, what would be helpful to them, and we can make that contact there and ask them what their needs are. Because we want to absolutely reach out to everybody, as we're saying, I think. Be worthwhile. Ian?
Yeah, of course, we'll take that away and speak to vibrant communities as we do regularly anyway. And just on Councillor McGee's point then, yes, I mean, this is the mid-term report, so we've still got targets to achieve up to 2024. We really want to give it that impetus. We did have some of the work impacted by the pandemic, and we want to clearly get to a position where we're recovering from that, getting back onto this as a priority. So just to reassure all members and Councillor Neil McGee that's very much the intention around this. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Ian. Okay, can we go to the recommendations in page 15? Paragraph 2, are we content with them? An additional recommendation. Okay, thanks. Thanks, members. Okay, the next item is the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Public Holiday and Revised School Holidays. Amanda.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. The purpose of this report is to provide Cabinet with the proposals in relation to leave arrangements and seek approval to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations in June 2022. The report also includes details of public holidays for 2022 and revised school arrangements for 21-22. Background is laid out in paragraphs 3 through to 7, including that in November 2020, the Minister of Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sport State announced the UK Government plans for Her Majesty's 70th anniversary in 2022. Paragraph 4, in Scotland, national holidays are devolved matter to Scottish Government, and they have confirmed that the traditional May Bank holiday would be moved to Thursday, the 2nd of June. Current position is laid out in paragraphs 8 through to 12, noting that whilst COSLA guidance outlines the award of the additional public holiday is to be determined by local councils, it's asking it to be considered that there's no adverse implications for morale employees if they do not benefit for this additional holiday. Paragraph 10 again relates to Scottish Government, noting that the late May holiday would be moved from Thursday the 2nd of June. Within East Ayrshire Council, approximately 59% of our employees have this public holiday, don't have this public holiday, and therefore proposed to move another day. Following consultation with our trade union colleagues, it's proposing to move the Friday the 16th of September. Proposals, therefore, starting in paragraph 13, is proposed the Council award an additional public holiday on Friday the 3rd of June for all employees, including those in educational establishments, to mark the Jubilee. We have, for members' information, sought and been granted permission from Scottish Government for an additional closure day within education establishments, and we've had confirmation also for Scottish Government that the delivery of the 1140 hours is for local determination. Employees that are entitled to the May bank holiday, that this is moved to Thursday the 2nd of June, and employees who are not entitled to that late May bank holiday have the Friday the 16th of September moved to the 2nd of June. The additional holiday will be pro rata, obviously, for part-time employees, and this is in line with North and South Ayrshire's plans. Paragraph 17 notes the public holidays for 2022 in Appendix 1, and apologies, there's an error there in case folk are panicking. Tuesday the 4th of June is still a public holiday, and we'll get that added on. And the school revised holidays are in Appendix 2. Paragraph 21 notes that our trade union colleagues have been consulted and are in agreement with the proposals. Paragraph 24 notes the approximate financial implications of £65,000. This is based on the cover on essential services. And the recommendations are laid out in paragraph 2, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Amanda. I think it's straightforward. Members, any comments? No. Thanks, Amanda. Can we agree the recommendations? Paragraph 2. Okay, that's agreed. The next item is the policy review schedule. And Amanda, you give that report again? Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Purpose of this report is to recommend to Cabinet the introduction of a care inspectorate policy and procedure, and recommend proposed changes to the secondment policy, support attendance at work policy and enhanced leave policy. The background is laid out in paragraphs 4 through to 11, And the main issues in the main part of the report starts at paragraph 12 with the introduction of the care inspectorate policy. This has been developed in consultation with registered managers from registered services and lays out the employee and employer's responsibilities. The key principles are noted in paragraph 12. Moving on to the secondment policy in paragraph 13, this has been a desktop review, and although there is several bullet points, they are mainly administrative changes, just for points of clarification and tidying up and changing wording in the forms. The main change in the report is in paragraph 3.1, and this is now to move to the wider inclusion of all employees, including chief officers and teachers. Previously, it was only local government employees. Paragraph 14, support and attendance at work policy. Again, minor changes. The main change in this is removing the stage 3 case review meeting prior to the stage 3 absence review meeting. Otherwise, it's adding in hyperlinks and making reference to my OH portal. Enhanced leave at paragraph 15, again a desktop review, and again just a bit about tidying up and reflecting and clarity in the wording and updating the pay scales within that, changes to the forms. Paragraph 21 notes that trade union colleagues have agreed to the policy amendments, and in paragraph 25 no financial implications have been identified as part of the review. The recommendations are in paragraph 2, and happy to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Amanda. Any questions there? John?
I've got 2 or 3 questions and looking for some clarity, Chair. Just page 40, when we talk about paragraph 731, would this, at the moment, as far as teachers go, it would only be the head of education or higher that could dismiss a teacher. Would this make it the responsibility, or would head teachers now have that delegated power? Would that make it easier to sack employees? And when it goes to paragraph 21, when we talk about trade unions have been actively involved with the reviews of policies, with discussions taking place through collective bargaining and teachers' consultative group arrangements as appropriate. Does that mean it's been an actual meeting that's taken place, or was it just like a desktop review, getting through emails or whatever? Thank you.
Thanks, John. Amanda?
Through you, Chair. Paragraph 7.31, there hasn't actually been any change to the procedure for the stage 3 absence review. The wording has simply been moved from what was previously 7.32, because we've removed the case review meeting, we've moved it up. The policy is still very clear, it's in line with the council scheme of delegation, and there is no change to that, so there's been no diminished responsibility or anything within that, so no actual change, more cosmetic, moving it to a different paragraph. In relation to trade union colleagues, when it is a desktop review, that is often done by email, which was done in this case, and we get confirmation response. The trade union colleagues get a copy of the revised policy and a list of all the changes as they're listed in the cabinet paper, and they either say they agree or they don't agree, and if they don't agree, then we have further consultation and discussion. Up until recently, it's always been in collective bargaining agenda, so we would revisit each of the policies within collective bargaining. It hadn't previously been in the teachers consultative group, but it's now a standing item in that agenda. That answers the questions.
You can confirm, Amanda, the trade unions have agreed to this. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Through you, Chair. Yes, I can confirm that all trade unions have agreed to this, and we'll have got email correspondence for that if anybody needs to see any backup documentation.
Okay, we've got confirmation of that. Thanks, Amanda. Is that another? That's another there. Okay, we'll go to recommendations there. Page 37. Can we agree recommendations? Okay. That's the end of the E items, so that we'll give for education representatives a couple of minutes to log out. Okay, now we go to the next item, which is Chief Officers, Local Government Employees, Craft Operatives, Local Government Pension Scheme Employers Directions. Amanda.
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of this report is to confirm the position on the Council's Statement of Policy of Employers' Discretions for the Local Government Pension Scheme 2021 and to continue to meet our regulatory requirements. There are no proposed changes within this report. The background is laid out in paragraphs 3 through to 9, which lay out our regulatory requirements and responsibilities. At paragraph 10, it notes the position that the existing employer's statement has been reviewed and there are no changes to the employer's discretions. It therefore should be noted that there are no proposed changes to our current policy. Paragraph 15, financial implications. There are no additional costs to the review of the policy, and the recommendations are in paragraph 2. Cabinet is asked to note the content of the report. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. It's kind of straightforward, members. Okay, can we just go straight to recommendations in paragraph 2? Agree? Okay, that's fine. And next item is Ayrshire Energy Master Plan. David is going to take it.
Thanks, Chair. The purpose of this paper is to seek partial funding requests for the development of an Ayrshire Energy Master Plan. The Clean Growth Workstream was established in 2020 as part of the Regional Economic Partnership Strategic Economic Strategy to develop the region's aspirations of transforming to a net zero economy. The workstream is led by the University of West of Scotland and chaired by Milan Radosavic, with membership from the 3 councils, Scottish Enterprise, Scottish Power Energy Networks and a number of other energy stakeholders. As part of the early clean growth work undertaken through the Recovery and Renewal Review, it was established that a regional energy master plan was essential to drive forward the regional economic strategy and to be a catalyst for investment in energy infrastructure, including power, heat and transport, and linked into clean technologies to develop solutions that will underpin economic growth, community wealth and resilience. The Energy Master Plan would provide an overarching strategy which links with each council's evolving climate strategy to create a resilient and sustainable future, while at the same time opening up new economic opportunities for the creation of a growing green economy and support the decarbonisation of the Ayrshire Growth Deal. Paragraph 15 sets out the overall objective of the Energy Master Plan to present an international-led pathway to a net zero that maximises social economic benefits for Ayrshire. Paragraph 18 sets out the anticipated cost of the Ayrshire Energy Master Plan of £150,000, which has been benchmarked against the Borderlands Energy Master Plan. Scottish Enterprise is committing £40,000 to the project and University of West Scotland £20,000. The remaining £90,000 cost is proposed to be from the 3 Ayrshire local authorities. Each East Ayrshire Council's £30,000 contribution will be provided from in-year underspend within finance and ICT. Paragraph 19 highlights that the procurement of the Energy Master Plan will incorporate a short-term subgroup which will set up from representatives from 3 councils, Scottish Enterprise and University of West of Scotland, to review and finalise a procurement brief which will be led by East Ayrshire Council. As you note from the report, I will chair the subgroup. There are no legal or policy implications arising from this paper and procurement will follow the standard procedures. And Chair, happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, David. Any questions? Jim Roberts.
Thanks very much. David, I think we're looking forward to further information as we go forward. I don't know whether you maybe consider a quarterly or 6 monthly or whatever, but I'll leave that up to yourself.
Jim, your microphone was I think it's just you're looking for regular updates. Was that?
I think that was the outcome, Chair. I think it was.
Aye, that's exactly right. You know, it's just a case of I don't have any problem with the paper. I think bearing in mind the importance of it, you know, some kind of update, you know, regardless of the frequency, quarterly, 6 monthly, it's up to yourself.
Thanks, Jim. That was a lot clearer now. That's we got that.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, it's up to members what they consider appropriate, but we're happy to bring back a report, provide an update.
It was 6 months. Is that?
Happy to do that, and you can then reconsider what the frequency thereafter, Chair.
We'll add that to recommendations. We're happy with that.
Yeah, that's fine for me.
Oh, Claire Leach.
That's great. Cheers, Dougie. Jim, I would support that as well, just a regular update in terms of this as well. David, I'll obviously work closely with you as climate spokesperson. Listen, it's just to acknowledge the power of what yourself and your department are doing in terms of driving forward our climate agenda. You, Carol, I know I've started naming folk, I'm going to make a hole for myself here. Just to say thanks for that. Also, you know, anything we can do to support the acceleration in net zero, because you do say in this report that they are ambitious targets, and they are ambitious targets, but I do think they're targets that are achievable if we all put our heads together. And I'd like to see this come into fruition moving forward, and some updates would be super, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Claire. Okay, David.
Yeah, no, thanks for those kind words. Really, what we're trying to do here is create a partnership arrangement and linking in with all the kind of key players in the energy sectors. We're also doing that through a number of other channels, which will link into the Energy Master Plan, and trying to link all the members will be aware we've got some of the biggest players in the UK here in our doorstep, for wind energy production. So we're trying to link in with them and bring that back so that we can use their knowledge and expertise to help transform the local communities.
Thanks, David. Yeah, that's encouraging. Okay, we're happy with that. So we're going to add that 6 monthly report to the recommendations. Are we happy with the recommendations in the second paragraph? Okay, right. So okay, move on to the final item, last but not least, the Property Management Plan Progress Report. Andrew.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just going to do a wee brief introduction, and then I'm going to hand over to Karen McGurty, who has been coordinating the work around the property management plan, just to kind of go through the report. Members will be aware, clearly, we've got a significant investment across all of our property estate, excuse me, through our capital programme. Property management plan fits within that in terms of the assessment, but also kind of provides a bit more detail in terms of maybe some of the more day-to-day and lower level investment that we have to kind of manage our properties. So what I'll do is just pass over to Karen and she can take you through the report. Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. Morning, members. Chair, this report provides the Property Management Plan Update 2021 snapshot of school results using the previously approved matrix reflecting the position as at the 18th of September.
Karen, there's something wrong with your IT. It's very slow. Then it went like Minnie Mouse. I don't know. I don't know what happened there. But can you try again? It was dead slow. It was 100 miles an hour. Right. Okay, try again.
I'll try. Chair, this report provides the Property Management Plan update for 2021 with a snapshot of scoring results using the previously approved matrix, reflecting the position as at the 18th of September. The full list of blocks by status is on the members' portal, but is summarised in Table 1 within the report, showing green scoring buildings increasing from 67 in 2020 to 208 in 2021. amber buildings decreasing from 118 to 91, and buildings scoring red reducing from 15 to 9 as shown in Table 2. Chair, this means that during 2021 there has been an overall improvement in the property management plan RAG scores across our operational estate. The report also highlights a number of areas of note, such as the Palace Theatre complex at paragraph 15, where a bid is being prepared for level of funding to develop and repurpose a state-of-the-art music venue as part of the Cultural Kilmarnock project. The report also notes at para 21 that the place-based working rollout continues to be impacted by COVID restrictions. But despite the challenges presented over the last 18 months, a significant programme of refurbishment and component renewal works has still progressed to improve conditions within a number of buildings, as detailed in Appendix 1, with next phase priority locations detailed in Appendix 2. However, Chair, the impact of COVID has delayed some projects and presented a need to review the scope and cost of others. Table 3 summarises areas of investment through 2020 to 21. Chair, in terms of energy, the energy usage in our buildings over 2021 was considerably influenced by the actions taken in response to COVID, and so it's difficult to make meaningful comparisons with previous years. However, the general outcome was that whilst many offices and public buildings looked to perform better than previous years, due to the increased usage by schools later in the season negated this overall, as gas totals over the education estate was slightly up on the previous year. Although this year should be seen as an anomaly, work continues to plan the rapid decarbonisation of our built estate to meet the Council's net zero aspirations. Chair, the property pledge goes from strength to strength, both in terms of rollout and recognition, recently winning APSI's Best UK Service Team Award. In terms of the rollout, 19 facilities have signed the property pledge to date, with a further 53 planned by December. And to recognise the commitment and efforts of those implementing the property pledge, an annual award process was introduced earlier this year, with a gold, silver, bronze certificate being awarded following a revisit to assess how well property pledge principles are being upheld. Chair, the report also highlights a number of areas of further development. In terms of recovery and renewal, at paragraph 42, post-pandemic presents an opportunity for rationalising and shrinking the office footprint, which will mean savings and reduce our carbon footprint. Property management data is vital to the property management plan, and additional focus is required to strengthen and support analysis activities. We are also looking to improve the building users' experience when using the property information portal. Chair, paragraph 47 notes the demolition of the multi-storey car park in Kilmarnock and the need to relocate occupiers presents an opportunity to potentially utilise surplus accommodation within Civic Centre North. Discussions are ongoing with a number of occupiers, and as proposals are developed, information will be provided to Cabinet. Chair, as the property management plan focuses on operational property, non-operational property is not included. However, if these properties were assessed using the same criteria, they would be assessed underperforming, requiring consideration of major capital spend, minor capital spend, or deemed surplus. And a number of recently acquired non-operational property that are actively being considered are listed within the report at paragraph 51. Chair, the property management plan links with the school estate management plan and supports the guiding principles of the community plan. There are no legal, HR or equality impact implications arising from this report. With regards to financial implications, the property management plan is key in directing capital investment, repair and component renewal spends, which are vital in order to ensure our buildings are maintained, improved and fit for purpose, with risks minimised by providing well-managed properties. Chair, the implementation of the property management plan across East Ayrshire supports and promotes transformational work streams and promotes the Council's net zero ambitions by assessing and reviewing energy usage and running costs to inform the rationalisation of our estate and reduce our carbon footprint through renewable technologies and by raising awareness and promoting energy efficiency and recycling through the property pledge. So in conclusion, Chair, the property management plan is fulfilling its aim by providing data and key information to shape and direct investment to improve our sustainable property. And it is recommended that Cabinet note progress made on property management plan activities, agree to continue to focus investment through the component renewal and cycle funding on improved outcomes of the property management plan and addresses a priority facilities identified as red. Recognise the positive impact made through the property pledge implementation and engagement to support the improvement in our environment. Note the introduction of an annual property pledge award scheme. Agree to progress the demolition of the Green Street buildings to enhance the option for developing the site. Otherwise, note the contents of this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Karen. Quite a number of issues for members locally there to absorb, try to resolve some issues there right across the board, plus a good report and just the wider objectives. Members, any questions? Jim Roberts. Then Neil.
Thanks very much, Chair. Table 3, Karen, there's some eye-watering costs associated with some of the works there. Now, I spoke to Andrew maybe going back about a couple of weeks ago about the Patna Primary School. I mean, that's a real cause for concern. Bearing in mind, in the grand scale of things, it's not an old school. Obviously, since I spoke with Andrew, you've been able to quantify some of the costs. Do you have any more or any further information in regard to where the failure has occurred and in regard to the supply of components and aspect of workmanship? Is there anything there that they can take back and claim against other parties?
Andrew?
Yeah, Chair, I'll come in and provide an update. I suppose the detail of your question, at the moment, I haven't got the full information. We are developing a further briefing note to go out to members in the next day or two. Obviously, just going to provide an update on that particular project. Clearly, there are a number of factors that are potentially impacted on the cause of the damage to the roof, and happy to provide some further information in that briefing note to members.
Okay, Chair, I'm fine with that.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, Neil?
Thanks, Chair. Just in similar lines to Jim, Andrew, on table 3, just for some added information, if you can, Loudon Academy, replacement hydrant, £100,000. Is that a swimming pool, you mean? That seems a hell of a money for a hydrant. Could you expand on it, please, Andrew?
There are a number of significant components that are in every building, and particularly our large campuses and secondary schools. Effectively, the amount of money allocated that is effectively the distance. So it's not just a hydrant, it's actually all of the pipework that goes with it. That's actually been the problem. And we've identified a number of locations where we've had to look at this kind of level of replacement, where we're looking at 50, 60-year-old pipework and things like that. And obviously there's others in there, like Dean Castle as well, where we've had to do similar, and obviously the pipework in there's even older. So these are the issues that are coming up through the investigations and the reports that are feeding into the property management plan, which is allowing us to identify and prioritise these areas.
Just to say thanks, Andrew. That explains it all to me. I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Okay. John?
Right, before I ask my question, I think that's some of the detail we need, Ken. When I remember a paper just recently, it was a carport, 17,000. So we asked how many carports was that, but it wasn't one, it was two. So we'd got a bargain. So I just want to go paragraph 19. Just want to flesh that out a wee bit. Ken, what other stakeholders are we talking to? We've mentioned one, but who else are we talking to? Also, paragraph 48, there's been a lot of talk about buildings that we've got and what are we doing with London Road, Civic Centre North, all our properties. So if we're already heading down to develop something, should we know, should elected members not know what the thinking is prior to us? Because when we come to a decision making further on, I'd like to ken as much as possible of what we're doing in the meantime. What are we doing with Civic Centre North? I see they're being developed further and we'll get further information will be provided, but I still think we should be fully up to date what the ideas are. And I was just wanting to ken in paragraph 49, how many non-operational properties do we have? That's fine, thank you.
Thanks, John. Andrew? Or Karen? Andrew?
Yeah, Chair, through you. So in terms of paragraph 19, there's been a level of consultation. Obviously, Celebrate Kilmarnock's obviously been coordinating a number of elements of community engagement as well, but certainly around kind of the local business association and obviously sort of through the Leisure Trust, there has been some further engagement. We are at the level where we've got a stage 2 design kind of due to be completed over the next few months. And from that, we'll then be looking to do a more significant engagement. Obviously, we've been notified that it won't be until spring 22 that the proposals will need to be submitted. So we've got a wee bit of time there to do a wee bit further engagement, which again, I think will also allow us to identify a number of the points that Councillor McGee's noted there generally in relation to the town centre. And so in terms of paragraph 48, obviously that partly why we've put that information into the paper, just to kind of provide that update that this is sort of some of the thinking. I mean, initially we are looking at a kind of, I suppose I call it a temporary arrangement due to the impact of the multi-storey. So we're looking to see if there is facilities there that the current areas can be used, rather than looking at any significant investment. And clearly there is still that longer term need in terms of investment through the wider town centre approach. And again, further information will be coming back as part of the local development plan and the work that the consultants were doing as part of that proposal. Anticipate that will be kind of either kind of before the end of the year or into the early part of next year. So the only final one, sorry, the last question there was non-operational property. I'll provide, if I can provide that separately and circulate that to members in terms of non-operational property. There's a number of different elements that are included in that. So I don't want to necessarily say kind of details at the moment. It's easier if I circulate a more detailed report.
I think John's quite happy with that, I think. David, in terms of development plan.
Thanks, Chair. Just to update members following Andrew's comments there. I mean, we are anticipating looking at a number of approaches over the next couple of months. First of all, we anticipate having with all the Kilmarnock ward members a discussion about the Kilmarnock Town Centre and the feedback we've received from the consultants. So that is kind of programmed. Well, we're just waiting to conclude dates later on this month. On the 25th of November, we are looking at having a overview of all of the local development plan, which will then set out, our findings to date, and to give members an awareness of what we anticipate will be in the finalised local development plan. We'll then, after that period, look to go for some level of public consultation on the Kilmarnock Town Centre strategy and the regeneration proposals. And then thereafter, by February, we'll be bringing back to full council the opportunity for council to consider the local development plan and to make final decisions on that matter before it gets sent off to Scottish ministers. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, David. Tom?
Thanks, Chair. Just to pick up on the point that John McGee raised about the involvement of groups in the redesign of the Palace Theatre complex. I think I was going to say it might be useful if the elected members had actually been involved in that, but I think from what David said, that's probably going to address that concern I have. So hopefully that's the opportunity for elected members to have their say in it. Just another question, and it could be being a bit parochial, but in terms of the demolition of the building in Grange Street, can you tell us which building it is? Because I wasn't aware there was one surplus to requirements. I know we're in public session, so I don't know if it's you're able to tell us or not.
I'm not sure the easiest way to describe it, but it's a kind of the white building with a canopy element under it, and obviously there has been we purchased it as part of that site where the car park's obviously been identified, and obviously the work that's been done, which involved an existing tenant and being able to relocate them, and that's obviously been able to be managed, which allows us then to take forward the demolition and obviously increase the capacity of the car park that was proposed. Clearly, the building itself was in poor condition, as noted in the report.
No, thanks, Andrew. That covers it. I think that's basically the extension of the three kind of doors that are there just now. It just runs on towards the corner. I know the building is. Thanks for that.
I think David could give a wee bit further. David Mitchell could give a wee bit further clarity.
There was previously discussions with a local business, a couple of local businesses that were interested in looking to the council to support them and trying to find new accommodation. That led the council to look at one point at the GPO building in John Finney Street as a possible solution. But the ultimate, having had it surveyed, the ultimate outcome in relation to that building was it was just cost prohibitive for them or us to develop the GPO building. But that then led to consideration of the GPO building, which itself is a significant vacant building in John Finney Street, and all the ground at the back where the Royal Mail used to operate. And there was also a site that then sits to the back of the GPO building in car parking and warehouse area that had previously housed a garage. The garage had been demolished by fire, burnt down by fire. It was then demolished. The last of the rubble was sitting at the back of the site. It was a derelict site, and it was acquired at that time on the basis of the council hopefully being able to tidy the area up and provide a solution. That was subsequently taken forward, not in relation to the GPO building, but it was taken forward. The proposal to form a car park there was in the last paper Ara brought. I can't remember the specific date, but it came to Cabinet within the last 3 or 4 months, and Cabinet agreed the formation of the car park in Grange Street. And these works are just part of the process of forming the car park, I presume, because the buildings are at the front in Grange Street. And as Andrew's rightly said, there was a charity in there. There was a canopy up above. We've relocated the tenants, and that needs to come down. It's not about car parks for all, but as members will be aware, this particular car park that's proposed there, one, it provides a solution to that. Not the whole derelict site, because it doesn't touch the GPO site, but it does deal with the former burnt-out garage site. It provides additional car parking, which will benefit the businesses in and around Grange Street. And I won't give them a free advert here, but members know which businesses that is. There's a dearth of parking in that area that affects some of the establishments there. And more importantly, it provides a solution before we actually have a problem once, and I say once and when, Above Adventure open, because parking was always going to be an issue there, given the location of and the status of the church, etc. So that's the background. It's a further car park. The demolition facilitates that, and it was all part of the previous and ongoing approach to town centre regeneration to try and put something in the place of derelict sites that will actually benefit the town. In this occasion, Kilmarnock, but in other occasions, other towns, but obviously in this one, Kilmarnock.
I knew what you meant by the town. I'll not disagree with you there, David, but I get the point. And I think it was old Candle Factory that burnt down. Members of just Tom, if you remember, there was a part of Scottish Garage at one time.
I remember it as a snooker hall.
Aye, that's right. Big break.
Spent some evenings in there.
Absolutely. Okay. Couple of points I think he's wanting in, but there's a couple of issues I was going to bring in myself. Just been kind of some of the discussions that's went on about the some of the kind of in paragraph 17 to 18 relating to the Infinity Loop. I went to a meeting late last week relating to the as part of the proposals for the St Margaret Square, and there had been a change of contractors that had been from the original subcontractors that were going to look at St Margaret Square. Apparently, I don't know how this happened. I don't know what the new contractors who were also doing the Green Infinity Loop, and don't want into great detail about it because I don't know whether I can, but other than to say that the costs of the project for St Margaret Square under the new proposals rose considerably, and I had to remind them of that the meeting that there was an envelope, and that there is an envelope that we're saying here, and I think we need to maintain that envelope and make that clear. But the reason I raise that is because that's the same contractor that's been used, I understand, because it's some drawings that they shared with us at the time of some of the plans, and they were just draft drawings for the the Loanhead area and the War Memorial, etc., and the linkages that we're discussing here. And I think they've already been prepared, and I would certainly echo comments that members have made earlier that I think most certainly elected member, we must have elected member involvement in this process before further expenditure or significant expenditure is incurred. So I'll just maybe put that kind of marker down there. The other 2 points I was going to make was in terms of the synthetic pitch surface at Sturton, and I think just as all these pitches get to their life and time, and I think there's big issues about how you maintain these synthetic surfaces, and I'll just be reminded that I think we should be carrying out some kind of review of all we're interested in there, because we've got a stake in quite a number of synthetic surfaces, and I would suggest that we carry out a kind of review to see where we are with all of them. Thirdly, just to echo the concern about Patna Primary School. That is a relatively modern school. I don't even know if it's 10 years old, so I think the concern that members have raised, I think, is duly noted, and I think we do need to monitor this very closely. And finally, St Andrew's Churchyard, where John Walker is lying. I had a visit fairly recently with Blair and Bob McCulloch, Blair Miller and Bob McCulloch, and the wall it's in a bit of a state, and Jim, my man, was with me as well, and the wall is in a bit of a state, and the open space next to it discovered with some of the landscapings and slabbing has been made with former gravestones, which I think we need to have a kind of look at that whole area in total, not just make it safe, but obviously as we maybe get more footfall in that bit of green space, have an eye to where we take this forward. And it might even be a possibility to approach our friends in Diageo for assistance in this as well. But I think we need to have a kind of closer look at this open space area and maybe bring it back just to see what the kind of longer term plans. It's good that we make it safe, but I think there's some issues down there that will need addressed if there is going to be any footfall down there. So that's just really for kind of my own comments there just now. Ian, you want to add as well?
Thanks, Dougie, and can I just echo your concerns about the John Walker's grave in particular in the St Andrew's Churchyard. I think that is, something that potentially could see far greater footfall. So I think there's a job to be done down in that area. My question is on the table 3. page 74, and it regards the Annan Hill golf course and particularly the fencing. I remember at the planning application stage for the houses that were built immediately to the boundary of the golf course, there was substantial sections of fairly high fencing put in then at the developer's cost. And I just wonder, is this replacement fence that the council are now liable for, given that it must be well over 10 years old now, or is this new areas that have been identified as potential risks that weren't anticipated when the planning application came through?
Andrew?
I suppose the obvious answer is a bit of both, but there's clearly additional areas to where we have put up additional extensive fencing in consultation with health and safety, following a number of reports of balls going into gardens, particularly at the first hole. But obviously there is other works that are involved in that in terms of, as I said, mentioned flooding and health and safety issues as well. But clearly the fence at the first hole is probably the significant cost element of that. Can I maybe just come back, Leader, on just a couple of the points that you'd made as well?
Absolutely, aye, absolutely.
I think just I suppose around the project in terms of the externals, and obviously the work that we're developing for the levelling up bid, then absolutely the next stage of that was to do some more closer engagement with elected members now that we've got that scheme starting to develop. Clearly, as you mentioned, in terms of the other element of the project, and I spoke to Doc last week, just in terms of where we are around the programme management of that project, and clearly managing the costs and bringing it back online was absolutely where that was being done. For information, the design team that involved was obviously part of a procurement exercise, which was an additional procurement exercise than the first piece of work that we'd done, which obviously is why we resulted in a different contractor for that bit of the process. I think the only other one, maybe just in terms of the synthetic pitch surfaces, then happy to provide some further information. We have done a bit of review around all our pitches, and clearly that was what we would started to do, is look at where the priorities were around that investment, and looking at that replacement programme. Basically all of these pitches, which are probably between 10 and 15 year old now in terms of the first ones that we started to put in, are at that point where their manufacturer lifespan is reaching the end. But clearly we do need to build a programme even for some of our new builds that we're putting in just now, and making sure we've got a longer term plan to ensure that we're able to replace those, because clearly there is a significant investment on each pitch when we do that. But happy to provide some further information in terms of that detail around all of the pitches that we've got.
Thanks, Andrew. Jim Roberts, is it? I've got Jackie as well.
Thanks very much. Annan Hill Golf Course, Ian's highlighted quite succinctly some of the questions I was going to ask. I think at the point in time, where any planning agreement was put in place, I don't know what the agreement actually said, but it would seem to me that we've potentially inherited a liability going forward for a fence. Now, I would imagine the golf course was there long before the houses were put in. So I don't know what the breakdown is. We're advocating health and safety and mitigation of flooding, but it seems an awful lot of money for a fence. Can I maybe just ask about a liability going forward? Is this a liability we are inheriting from something maybe not been made clear with respect to maintenance and replacement going forward at the point of agreement when the fence was put up originally? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jim. Andrew, can you answer that? Callum?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, clearly, where we are required to put up a fence on our land, then that's obviously our liability to kind of maintain and deal with that. I think the wider issue maybe is where, as part of a housing development, there's a fence that we need to be put up on the development land, and then I would expect that would be under whatever maintenance agreement that housing estate would have. But the fence that the comments are around the fence that we've just recently put up, and that's where the majority of this spend has been incurred.
So can I come back in, Chair?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay, what I'm not understanding is that the point in time where the fence was put on, was that paid for by, say, for example, a developer contribution as part of a planning agreement, whether Section 75 or otherwise? And if so, what was the arrangements going forward for the maintenance stroke replacement of the fence? Because it seems to me that on the paper, we seem to be picking up the tab for putting in place a fence, and potentially we might have no liability whatsoever for replacing any fence.
Chair, I think this might be better for me just to have a separate conversation with Councillor Roberts on this one, because there was no fence of any significant height at the side of the first hole, and we've had to put in an additional fence. That's where the significant cost has come from. I would obviously need to get further details in terms of, and I think it's the fourth hole, there was previously a fence up, which I think would be under the arrangements that you've described. But I would need to find out further information on that.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I think it was your while briefing Northern elected members bearing in mind we're Northern session discussing a significant cash investment here.
Probably worthwhile sharing it with the local members as well. Okay. Another hand up there, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask you, Andrew, when you'd be able to provide further details, such as when we can expect an update on the Royal Bank of Scotland that's noted on page 78, given that we've had it since 2018. And obviously, I should also probably declare at this point that I'm an employee of CAB, and I know it's mentioned in the paper, but I'm really asking for a local authority perspective of a building that we've taken on quite a delay, which I understand with the pandemic, but quite a delay in it progressing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. We'll note that as a non-pecuniary interest. Okay. Andrew.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Todd, yeah, I mean, I think probably just noting there that we have had tenders back. The costs have been effectively higher than we'd initially anticipated. Clearly, the pandemic and the material costs has obviously impacted on that. We also only had one tender as well, which obviously created some further risk. So that piece of work in terms of assessing the best value of that is what's currently happening at the moment. And then hopefully I was anticipating that certainly kind of early part of this month, and we're kind of heading out of that now. We would have had a direction of travel in terms of how we can take that forward. But clearly this hasn't been an easy project.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Just keep us updated with any advancements, please. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, members. That's all the inquiries I need to add in particular to recommendations, but there's a few action points there that will be noted. Okay, can we go to the recommendations on page 67? Oh, sorry, Jim, you want in before?
Yeah, Chair, just based on the discussions relative to Iron Hill Golf Course, can we agree that spend bearing in mind we're waiting for further information coming back?
I think it's already been, for what I've heard, it's already been spent, Jim, but we're looking for further aid. That fence has been spent, but certainly we can brief members just along the questions in terms of ownership and liabilities that you'd asked. That'll be circulated.
So the fence is already up?
Yes. As Andrew said, confirmed that if my hearing was right. Yeah.
So, okay, thanks for that.
Okay. There's another hand up. Is it? I'll still jump. Okay, can we go to recommendations? And the 6 of them, can we agree them? Paragraph 2. Okay. Thank you. And I think that concludes matters for today. Thank you all for your attendance.
Thank you.